Let me begin this by apologizing if the title deceived any of you. I will not be talking about my first time. No, ladies and gentlemen, I will not be talking about the first time I hooked up with a Benefan or the first time I hooked up with a female coworker. No. I'll be talking about the first time I ever won championship gold. One of my personal highlights. Now, I've won titles since, all over, and everywhere I've been. I'm currently the Texas All-Star Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. I've been champion for them since the end of March. I'm also the Gulf Coast Power Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. I've been champion with them since December, which makes me a dual champion currently. That's right, dual champion. Get used to it. Greatness! But back in my early years, that wasn't a guarantee. I mean, I had been given a couple of opportunities with tag belts and whatnot, but June 23rd, 2001 was the first time I ever was able to hoist championship gold above my head and put it around my waist and put it over my shoulder and be considered a champion. Now for me, I've heard others discuss a heavyweight title or a belt as a prop. I've heard that mentioned. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, when you want to get down to it, yeah, it can be considered a prop, if that's how you want to consider it. I consider any time you win gold or you're given the opportunity for gold as, you know, an important mark in anybody's career. When you're given the opportunity to become champion, you're the focal point, should be. You're the person on the poster. You're probably the person that they come to see. At least you want to be that person. You're a leader in the locker room. You're a representative of the company. You should be looked upon as someone, like I said, who can lead. I believe that. I believe that when I put belts on people and when I've been given the opportunity to become a champion or you know, I'm given the opportunity to compete for one, I take it very seriously. Because I have a belief in it. And this was no different. May of that year, my name had been brought up, and I can't speak or speculate as to why. You know, I could assume, in part, my name was put in there is because I was a loyal guy to the company and I was dedicated to them and was getting some positive reviews from veterans and other companies that that CTPW was working for. I was a locker room leader. I was vocal, very respectful, and, like I said, well liked by other veterans and you know, people within other companies. And I believe that there was part of it that had to do with the turnover of champions. Paul Powers had been champion for a while, and all of a sudden he was no longer champion. Then Mick Tierney was their current champion at the time, around May, and he was talking about leaving the company because he was gonna move. So I think they wanted some stability. They wanted someone that they could count on, someone they could trust, and yeah, again, that's my thinking going into it. And I believed I was all those things, but I was still, you know, apprehensive to a bit. I, you know, hadn't even been in 20 matches yet. You know, I was about 14 months in. You know, I had my concerns. I was still, like, figuring myself out. I mean, it was, you know, I hadn't gotten to that 2-year mark yet. But I was making strides, and I actually got to work Mick Tierney, and it ended up being a count out for us, and like a double count out. So I knew that I was possibly in line, that he was going to leave, and they were like, well, you're going to be in the title match. And they were going to find me an opponent, and it was going to be at the Expo Center, and that was going to be the second Expo show that they had ran. And I wish I had memorabilia about that. I mean, that's one of the things that George would tell me early on that I really wish I had listened to more intently and actually followed his advice, was to keep memorabilia. Like anything with your name on it, you should keep, because when the memories fade, you'll still have those to look back on. And unfortunately, I'm lucky with the footage that I do have from CTPW, but a lot of that first couple of years I don't have actual footage. I don't have programs. It's like, I know one of the expo shows we had Jake the Snake, and another one I believe we had the Road Warriors, and this could have been the Road Warrior show or the Jake the Snake show. I know we weren't slated to be in the main because we did have names coming in, but I was still in the title match, and I was really excited about that. I was really excited about the opportunity. I really wanted to showcase. I really wanted to prove that I was worthy of being, you know, considered a champion, and I appreciated just having the opportunity to be in a title match. That was one of the things I could mark off, being in a title match, being in a singles match, being in a high-profile match. On top of that, I was getting to work Rodney Mack, who I had heard about. I had seen him on ECW television. He had appeared on there, and he would later go on to being a WWE superstar, married to Jazz, so on and so forth. But at the time, I didn't really know a whole lot about him. I heard his name mentioned throughout Texas, and he was a guy that, you know, you look at his picture and he looks like he can hold his own. He looks like a guy you don't mess with. So it was a bit intimidating. He was the first name, quote unquote, that I'd be working. I mean, guy that I considered really a name in that sense, that they're bringing this guy in specifically, and I considered it a big deal. So I was nervous. I'm always nervous before matches, but I was really nervous before that one, and what added to my nervousness was a week prior at a TXW show I was working Flaming Rose, and we're going through this match, and you know, we're having this contest and going back and forth, and I hit the super kick, and my planting foot rolled a little bit, and when it rolled, at the same time, Flaming Rose just fell on top of it, and so I thought I broke my foot, and this is a week before this show, and one of the biggest matches of my career, one of the biggest matches of my life, and I was in a walking boot, and they were like, "Are you sure you can go?" And I'm like, "Man, you're gonna have to kill me to not do this show. I mean, that's the only way that I'm gonna be stopped." And so I did everything in my power. I got wrestling boots. I actually been handed down some wrestling boots, which I thought was awesome. That I got some actual wrestling boots. I got new attire for the show. Wanted to look extra spiffy for it, and extra cool for it, you know, in my opinion. And I really wrapped up my foot to where it wouldn't move at all. And I thought I had a noticeable limp, but I tried to brave it and didn't want, you know, just kind of, I wanted to be the standard bearer of that show, you know. I'm going to become the champ. I've got to have the greatest match, and so on and so forth. But again, having a bad left foot, and that's my planting foot, and you know, well, if I can't stand on it by itself, and I was doing all kinds of things to make sure I was somewhat stable. And I was really blessed to have Rodney Mack as my opponent. Despite being a name and whatnot, he is a professional wrestler in every sense of the word. He epitomizes the word professional, was extremely professional with me. Really gracious in working with me, and really gracious in doing the honors for me, and making my title match a very special thing. And really, it was one of the few and first times that I got in there with somebody and we didn't call anything in the back. It wasn't a situation where we really discussed. He just said, "Okay, what do you do?" And he put this match together as we were out there. And it was the first time I'd really been in the ring with somebody where there was really not a whole lot discussed. We just went out there and performed, and he carried me every step of the way, and I'll always be grateful for that. He showed me that you could go out there, and that's the true art form, is being able to go out there with an opponent, not having a lot of things discussed, and really just being in the moment and reacting to everything, and it just puts that extra emphasis on what you're doing, you know, because you're just in it. You're not thinking about what's coming next. You're thinking of the audience, but at the same time you're just immersed in the experience. It was just such an amazing time. I really wish I had the footage. I lucked out in a sense because I rarely do take pictures with guys in the back, you know, names and whatnot. I'm just not that type of person. Always was taught that you don't carry yourself that way. That if you're in the locker room with them, then you belong there. Now, mind you, we take pictures from mementos and whatnot, and I was lucky in a sense that Marty Green, whose belt we used for that night, was able to take a picture and asked for me and Rodney to pose together, and I still have it. So yeah, there's that belt, the thumbs up and whatnot. You can't really tell, but I got snakeskin pleather pants for the occasion. I'm still like trying to do the pants thing. I had this interesting top, to say the least. And I think I only wore that top one time. That was the one time, and I don't even know where the pants are anymore. That's the crazy part. But it was an amazing night for me. I mean, and also because I got to meet like Kevin Douglas and Trinity, and I got introduced to PCW. That was, I think, one of the first times I really heard about PCW. Kevin was real complimentary of my work, and really to hear that from an outsider, not someone who's in your normal locker room, meant a lot. And I was happy that George and Papa Don were happy with it. I was real happy that Rodney Mack really enjoyed the match and really enjoyed working with me, and told me I had a tremendous upside and a lot of potential, and I listened well, I guess. And again, one of the highlights of my career. I mean, winning titles is still a big highlight, but nothing's quite like your first. Now, I only held the title for a few months. Come October, mid-October, I had been feuding with Devastator, who I'll be talking about in the next video probably at length. But I worked in depth with, I worked a feud with Devastator. It was one of my first like singles feuds, and it was a really interesting time. And when the time was right, and he was the right guy, they were building him up to be the next champ. Time came. And so mid-October, did the honors, and then it was brought up that I would probably get the title back at some point, but by the time I lost it, it was, okay, what's next for Steve DeMarco? What's next for my career? What was the next step? I had done some things, which I'll talk about in the next video, in the coming months leading up to me losing the title, but I was feeling like, okay, this is the end of this chapter. Let's get to the next chapter. And not that I wanted to leave C2BW necessarily, but I wanted to expand my knowledge of this great business, and I wanted to work with top talent, and I started to believe that I wanted to work on the biggest stages possible, and I wanted to make that happen. And that really, I think that night, June 23rd, 2001, is when it really started to click in my head that I really wanted to do something and be something special more than I was already attempting to be. So the next video will be talking about my travels to Mexico and the differences with between being in America and being in Mexico, and some of the pros and cons, and just my time there and some of the travels and some of the stories. So I hope everyone enjoyed this video. Be on the lookout for the next one. It should be out pretty soon. And until the next time, stay cool, stay sexy, stay classy. But until the next time, later.